Hey there, I'm Jackye Mumphrey, a local real estate maven here in the Mableton area, right outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I do videos about Mableton, the real estate market, and about Georgia as a whole, and I'd love for you to sit and listen to this presentation that I did specifically here on Mableton and the 30126 zip code. It's going to give you some insight as to what's happened over the past decade and where we might be headed to coming soon into the new decade and starting in 2020. So let's get into these numbers, guys. So the Mableton sales history for the decade ending in 2019. Now, what I ended up doing was going and researching sales statistics for properties that were listed in either GIMLS or FMLS, which are the two listing services that cover the Mableton area. So let's get into these numbers. Mableton by the numbers. Starting in the beginning of the decade, we sold approximately 461 homes. Toward the end of the decade, 2019, we've already closed 801, and we have right now just a few more that are pending, about 107, and a combined or added volume of 29 million, in addition to the volume that we've already sold this year, which is 221 million. Will kind of get us to our ending numbers for the end of the decade. So altogether, pending sales 107, 29 million, average list price for those properties is 275,000. But at the top bar here, days on market at the beginning of the decade, 79 days, days on market at the end of the decade, 37 days. So we've made an improvement in how long it takes to get a home sold here in Mableton, which is excellent. Our average sold price in the beginning of the decade was $202,000, and the average sales price toward the end of the decade is $272,000. With combining the pending sales we have will get us to $275,330. So this is a very interesting page here because it shows you the trajectory of what's happened with our listed properties over the past decade, and you can kind of prognosticate where we might be going towards in the future if things stay stabilized or even improve. We have had some setbacks in our momentum in Mableton. If we go back and look at the top bar, you see that we had, beginning of the decade, 461, in 2011, 548, 622, 632, 663, 768, 835, and so on. We've actually going to exceed last year's total at 857, and if you add the pending, it'll be 908. The volume has been a little funny because if you look at, we were started at $92 million in 2010, but then went down $89 million in sold volume. And that's interesting because we had the downturn in 2008. So I'm thinking actually toward the ending of 2007. So I'm thinking that that was just a depressed value because we sold way more homes, but they sold for less money. So to me, that would indicate that the values were just low because of the downturn that we all experienced. So that is a setback in value. Now, same thing as the average sold price. It all lines up. In 2010, we were at $202,000. To 2011, we dropped all the way down to $155,000. And what that tells me, when we compare that to where we are now with all of the volume sold at the end of the year at $275 million, that, or $275,000 is the average price. That tells me back in 2011, in the past decade, that would have been the best time to buy a property here in Mableton from a pricing standpoint as to what's gone on during the decade. So that's kind of important to note and kind of interesting. We also look at in the days on market. We started the decade selling in 79 days, 97 days. It took a little bit longer. So if you look at that in 2011, 548 homes sold, which there were more homes than the year before. The volume was a little less at 89 million. The average sales price was way less at 155, and it took about 24, 25 days longer to sell. So that was very, very interesting. So if you were a buyer in 2011, that would have been the best year for you to purchase property. So going on to our next slide. Popular floor plans, and this very rarely ever changes. I started specializing in Mableton back in 2003, and this stat here is pretty much the same stat as it was then, although the houses were just a little bit smaller than they are now. I believe then they were like 2,118 was the average square footage, and I've been tracking this for years. So, but the average floor plan here in Mableton is a 4-bedroom, 2.5 baths with a square footage of 2,354 square feet, 2-car garage, 2-story on a basement. That is like the average in-demand popular floor plan here in Mableton. The highs and lows of the decade, if you were the lucky buyer who bought a property that was 3,300 square feet here in Mableton, back in 2011, they bought a house for $9,000. Now that would have been approximately 3 years after we had that debacle in the market. So that might have been a dilapidated property, but nonetheless, that's a great deal because nowadays you can't even buy land that cheap here in Mableton. The highest home sold in the last decade is $1.4 million, and that was over in the, I believe in Vinance Estates, actually no. I believe it was off of Buckner Road, and that was for a 6-bedroom, 6.5 bath, 8,700 square foot home, and it sold in 31 days back in 2015. So that was the highest home sold in the past decade, which meant that was prime time for that house to go ahead and sell. And our biggest lot that sold in Mableton, we've got here's 25 acres with 3,304 square feet. That's over on Cooper Lake Road, sold for $725. The smallest lot sold were 8 homes that tied for the smallest, which was a 0.10 of an acre. So that's like a 4,356 square foot lot. That's small. That's like a really, really small lot. So I just thought that was notable. So there's only 8 that were listed that sold during this last decade. Population in 2010 was 37,115. Population in 2019 has grown a bit, by a couple thousand people at 39,788 people. Now, there are approximately 15,000 structures where people habitate, live in, condos, townhouses, houses. There are some that are vacant, but I did my research on USPS for deliverable addresses. I pulled up census records. I pulled up tax records to come up with that number. This particular stat actually came from Remind, which is a real estate research website that real estate agents and appraisers have access to. Bedroom counts. So for our bedroom counts here in Mableton, we're looking at 1-bedrooms. Can you believe there's 2,000 1-bedroom houses here in Mableton? That's like crazy. I didn't know it was so many. That's quite a bit. And obviously those would skew towards, more like condo townhouses, but we don't really have a ton of those that would be 1-bedroom. I'm guessing there were just some 1950s, 1960s style houses that had the 1-bedroom, which is just crazy to me to have that many here in our market because they don't come up onto the market very often at all. 2-bedroom homes, there's 1,506. 3-bedroom homes, 7,301, which would make a lot of sense because a lot of the housing stock that is in Mableton is going to be built from the late 1930s all the way up to today, with the average square footage. The average home being built would be a 3-bedroom. There are quite a bit 2-bedrooms, but the 3-bedrooms obviously are the bulk of our market, our housing stock here. 4-bedrooms, 3,336 of those, 628 5-bedroom homes, and 74 6-bedroom plus homes here in Mableton. And there's 321 homes that are unknown because when I was doing the data, looking at the data, they just didn't register what their beds and baths composition was. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe perhaps those might be building starts because we have about 12 building starts where people are looking at coming in and build here in Mableton, where they might have the lots designated for houses, but just the county has not recorded the bedrooms for some reason. That gives us a total residential structures of 15,201 that we have are nearly 40,000 people living in. So subdivisions. Now these next few slides here is going to entail properties that are in 30126. So they're not specifically Mableton, but 30126 zip code is primarily Mableton, but there's been some annexation of Mableton into Smyrna. So for those who are very technical about what's Smyrna and what's Mableton, these next 11 slides are specifically properties that are in the 30126, which may at one time have been in Mableton, but have been annexed. So these are popular, and this is like a running 12-month number or stat here from rspro.com. There's 10 subdivisions here that are listed based on the amount of units that are in that particular subdivision. So number one in the 30126 zip code would be Vinings Estates. It is the largest zip code, our largest subdivision that we do have in the zip code. There's over 900 homes. There's actually different sections within Vinings Estates. There's also associated, as I call associated parts of Vinings Estates that have the Vinings Estates in the name, like the Cove at the Vinings Estates. They have the Vinings Estates Eastgate, the Abbey, things like that. So all inclusive, it's well over 900 homes, and of course it's the largest subdivision in this part of the county. Now in Providence, we're looking at around a little less than 425 homes. The Retreat at Old Vinings Lake, 306. Vinings Vintage, 274, Vinings Cove, 245, 235 in Maple Valley, which runs in between Fontaine Road to the east and Floyd Road approximately to the west. Kind of, if you guys are familiar, if you guys here are in town, the area that's behind the amphitheater all the way up to behind the Publix going east towards Fontaine, that would be Maple Valley. Clay Manor, which runs off of Clay Road, 234 homes. Johnson's Crossing will have 180. That's going to be off of Oakdale Road going towards Smyrna on the left-hand side. You would turn down Roberts Drive, I believe that's called, and 179 homes in Garden Woods, which is over there off of Mableton Parkway. So those are the subdivisions based on the number of housing units, and these are housing units as recorded as deliverable addresses by the United States Postal Service. All right, so best-selling subdivisions, okay, and this is going to be by percentage. So this means for the number of homes, the percentage is how much turnover they have had in that community. So in Vinings Estates, 5.9%, or just a little bit under 6% of the residents have moved out of that community in the last 12 months, or you could say people have bought in that community in the last 12 months. Parkview Commons has the highest turnover, and that is a community that's off of Mableton Parkway. It is a sizable townhome community. There are a lot of rentals in there, which could be why there's a lot of turnover. I know that HOA has gotten really, really strict on the amount of investors that can hold properties in there for rental. They're trying to, which I can do in another video if you guys are interested, but they're trying to salvage their FHA status in there, which means that if you're FHA approved, that you could sell the properties to those buyers using those loans. If you are in a condo association, just as this one is, and your FHA approval is gone or has expired, then you're going to limit the amount of people who can buy in that community. And typically for condos, you're going to typically see a lot of first-time home buyers buying in those communities using FHA. So that's a lot of turnover in that community. I would suspect it's because it does have a fair amount of renters in there, but it does have a pretty strong HOA that has stepped up quite a bit in the last 3 years with getting that neighborhood back in shape financially. Providence, 11.6% turnover rate in there, which is a little high. You usually like to see under 10%, which gives you, but you don't want to see like no movement in a subdivision because one, prices won't increase. They're more likely to decrease if there's not people moving rapidly. The opposite could be If the houses are hot, like if the neighborhood is hot, you just may not have people who want to move, but usually that's not the case, especially in our area. If a neighborhood is too stable and houses are not changing over, then it kind of stagnates the value a little bit, because most appraisers are going to base the value of a home on what else has sold in a relative similar floor plan and in distance from the house. Vinings Cove is a 9.4% turnover rate, and the retreat at Old Vinings Lake is looking at 6.6, which is a pretty healthy turnover rate for that community. Between 5 and 10, I say, in my opinion, is very healthy. Okay, so our most expensive neighborhoods in the 30126 zip code, and again, this is going to be for properties in Mableton and just outside of Mableton and Smyrna, which once were Mableton, just got annexed into Smyrna, but for all intents and purposes, I still call it Mableton. The most expensive subdivision that we have in our area is going to be Buckland Oaks. It's 11 home sites in that community. The average sales price in that community is $1.275 million. Average days on the market is a whopping 250 days, which is a long time to have a home on the market. It was built by Historic Designs and is located right off of Buckner Road. Number 2, we're looking at the second most expensive community is Registry Oaks, and that is off of Buckner Road. Average price in there is $835,000. This is only 14 home sites. There's one currently being built in there right now. I'd love to see what their final value is going to come in at when that one's done. The average days on market is 124 days, which is a little long, but the higher in price point you go, typically the longer it does take to sell, because you just have less people buying at those upper price points. This was built by First Choice Builders, and again, it was located off of Buckner Road. The most expensive home, number 3, is of course Vinings Estates. We just touched that a little bit. The average list price in there, and that's collectively for all homes in all areas of Vinings Estates within the actual body of Vinings Estates and the outlying properties in the Abbey, the Vinings Eastgate. The average price is at $656,588, and this is a rolling 12-month value. Over 900 home sites. Average days on market is 71 days, a little longer than what I like to see normally. However, for that neighborhood and those price points, again, it's going to take a little longer to sell because you just have less of the population looking to spend that kind of money on property as a whole, and that's nationwide. Built by John Wheeler Homes and Neighborhood, largest subdivision in South Cobb County, and it's located in between Cooper Lake and Pebblebrook Roads. All right, number 4, Vinings Brook. That's a relatively newer subdivision built by David Wheatley Homes. Average sales price in there was $525,284. I didn't have a home count for some reason. That didn't come up in the discovery I was doing for that community. But the average days on market for that community is 119 days. Average square foot is 3,165 square feet. Located off of Pebblebrook Road. Number 5. Collins Lake, one of my favorite neighborhoods. That one was built by Pulte off of Fontaine Road. The average sales price in there is $517,000. Average days on market is 47. That neighborhood does take the average days, and this was for like all of this year, and I think the reason why that number is low is just because that neighborhood just perked up and got hot. That is not an easy neighborhood to sell in because the homes are very similar to each other. It's kind of in a funny location off of Fontaine Road. It's kind of in the middle of Fontaine. It's kind of near the train, but I do love the way that neighborhood lays out. It does have a lake. It does have a pool. And with the homes having a little bit of similarity, cookie cutterness, some people may not like that, but I do like the charm of that. I do like going in and seeing a nice, clean, well-kept neighborhood, and that is one of the ones here in Mableton that are very well kept. This one is built by Pulte Homes, and again, is located off of Fontaine Road. Vining Springs, number 6, average sales price $448,000. Average days on market over the past decade, 47 days. Built by O'Dwyer Homes, located off of Silvertania Road, which comes off of Cooper Lake Road. Right, and Cooper Lake Road runs between East-West Connector and Veterans Memorial. Next, we have Chimney Oaks, number 7, also built by O'Dwyer Homes. The average sales price, $447,700. Average days on market in the past decade, 79 days. A little long for my taste. Located off of Cooper Lake Road. Now, that part of that community, I believe, is in Smyrna, and part of it's in Mableton, because it's right at that line where Mableton and Smyrna intersect, right off of Cooper Lake Road. This is a very beautiful community. It does not have amenities, which could be why it takes 79 days to sell in there. They have like a little entrance that's kind of cute, like a little chimney stack, which is cute, but it doesn't have any amenities. So that could lean to why it takes a little longer in there to sell compared to other communities in Mableton. Now in Providence, it's one of the only few, I believe there's 8 or so, I think 8. I said 6, but I believe we have actually 8 gated communities in our area if you're looking at the 30126 zip code altogether, and not specifically Mableton. If we're doing just specifically Mableton, I believe we have 7. So this is one of the few gated communities, also built by John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods, located off of Veterans Memorial, and that's going to have, I believe that community has like 2 pools and like a big clubhouse. It is the only one that has a guarded entrance, so it's gated and it has a guard on site. It's the only one like that that's in Mableton. There are both townhouses in there, and there are also single-family homes, and it was built with 2 builders, primarily John Whelan Homes, and then Pulte bought the remaining lot positions in that community, and they're continuing to build even now townhouses in the point at Providence. So number 9, Legacy at the Riverline, another John Whelan Homes and Neighborhoods community, also finished out by Pulte Homes. Average list price $413,750 off of Veterans Memorial and Discovery Boulevard. And this is going to be the first subdivision as you're coming into Mableton from I-285 in Atlanta. So it's about 2.5 miles from 285. I think it's actually about 2 miles from I-285. Coming into Mableton, you cross over the river. You're going to see 2 gas stations, a Chevron on your left and a racetrack on your right. And Legacy at the Riverline is going to be your very first subdivision on your left, across the street from the Taylor Morrisons that are currently being built. And those Taylor Morrisons are townhouses, and those average around the upper 200s to low 300s for anyone that's looking for new construction townhomes here in Mableton. Now, and number 10, most expensive subdivision in all of 30126 is Lakeview at Vinings, with an average list price, or average sales price of $413,730. Average days on market, 74 days. Built by Ashton Woods, located off of Cooper Lake Road. Now, this is interesting because this is down the street from the ones that I said that were in Chimney Oaks. And this was built by Ashton Woods. That was built by O'Dwyer. And I'm trying to remember if Lakeview at Vinings has a pool. I can't remember or not, but they do have a lake that's in the community, and they're backed up to Heritage Lake, which has a pool, and you can feed, not a pool, but has a lake and you can feed ducks. They also have a community center. Not Heritage, it's Thompson Park. They're actually backed up to Thompson Park. So that's a really great location, and I believe that one's technically Smyrna as well, with a Mableton address. It's just like barely Smyrna. I think like some of the homes in the front are Smyrna and the ones in the back are Mableton. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. I have to pull up the map on that. But if they are Smyrna, they were annexed into Smyrna because all that area over there was originally Mableton. So anyway, this is number 10. So a little disappointing on the days on market, and this is over the decade, obviously. There's not a ton of sales that happen in this community at all, but they do tend to maintain their value in there, which is great. Their lots are like really small though. So if you want something that's compact and not a lot of exterior maintenance, and you want something that's been built within the last decade, then this will be a great neighborhood. So now getting into the luxury market here in Mableton, we do have one. I know some people are just like, there's a luxury market in Mableton. Yes, indeed there is. So, and this report here is for homes reporting at $500,000 in sale volume or above. Just under $200 million traded hands. Average sales price, $650,000. Average square footage, 4,726 square feet. Average cost per square foot, which really matters to a lot of people in the East Coast and in the West Coast that like to want to relocate to our area, $133.70 per square foot. Average days on market, 73 days for homes that are above $500,000 in Mableton. And that is important to note because, again, the higher the price point, the longer days on market we tend to see in general, because higher end homes do take a little longer to sell because there's less people looking for them. But every now and again that switches. Sometimes the luxury market gets really, really hot. But right now there's a softening in the market. So you can get some really good deals here in the Atlanta area just in general. Now the number of real buyers here in luxury in the 30126 zip code, and this is in 2019. So in the price points of 500,000 to 600,000, we looked at we see 24 real buyers in the market. And those are people that actually came in and purchased. 4 at 600,000 to 700,000, 2 at $701,000 to 800,000, 2 again at 800 to 900, 2 at 900 to 1 million, and we had 5 buyers between the $1 and $2 million price point here in Mableton, and those sellers and buyers are indeed lucky to sell and also come into our area. So that's just a quick look at that. Next, we have the average days on market for the corresponding price point. So from 500 to 600,000, we're looking at 85 days. For 600,000 to 700,000, we're looking at 41 days, which is not bad. And this is from January 19th to November 21st of this year. Then we're looking at 22 days for 700 to 800,000. We're looking at 64 days from 800 to 900, 99 days from 900 to 1 million, and 72 days for 1 million to 2 million. This is very interesting to see where this number here from the 900,000 to 1 million, that it took 99 days, but only took 72 days to sell homes that were higher, which is very interesting to me. It seems like that would be the most competitive price point, I guess, that 900 to 1 million is what it would look like to me. And it's amazing that from the 700 to 800,000, they sold in 22 days, which is well below the norm for luxury property in our area and just for luxury property in general. So those sellers must have gotten it right and priced their home correctly to attract the right buyer. So good for them. In 2019 highs for 30126, again, this is for the zip code, single family home index for listed homes. In September, we had the highest average price of $344,047. September also had the highest number of homes for sale at one time, which was 194, which is a lot for Mableton. I mean, we have almost 40,000 residents. We sell just under, say, between 800 and 900 homes a year, just under 1,000 homes a year. So having 194 on the market at the same time is kind of a lot for our area. The month with the most listings added was May, which makes perfect sense because a lot of people wait till the summer to put their house on the market. However, if you put your house on the market in May of this year, you put your house on with a lot of competition at the same time. So sometimes it's better to actually hit the market in early spring, or like February, March, than it is to, at least in this year, to have done it in May, because that's a lot of competition, and not only with just the resale market, but you're also looking at new home construction, which usually drives a pretty hard bargain for regular resale homeowners, because it's kind of hard to compete with new construction because they do offer so many incentives and the houses are newer, so it's a little hard to compete. But May would have been not the best time to list your house. That's a lot of competition, and of course the most homes sold is 71, so which is not surprising that it's July. So that means that you had a lot of people list their houses in May. I would suspect they also listed in April, so that they could trigger, if you're looking at your average sales price, average days on market triggering a sale, it's going to land you with a lot of sales in January or in July. So that is to be expected. This here is a sampling of Mableton sales, and I want to show this slide here. And the reason why this one's important is because I try to educate my sellers pretty often on what their expectations should be when they put their house on the market. And so I just want to point out a couple of things here. An expired listing in yellow means a home that came on the market and failed to sell during that listing period. A closed sale means a home that sold. A withdrawn listing here means that the seller took the house off the market for whatever reason. They could have fired the agent. They could have decided they didn't want to sell. They could have found that the property was unsellable because it had title issues, or they owed more money than they thought they did. Things different. There's different reasons why people take their homes off the market. So looking at the first one here at 5270 Abbey Park, we saw that it expired. They had it listed at $1,750,000, and they dropped their price. And you see that was listed in September 17th of 2018. It finally sold in February of this year, and they had to negotiate and or drop their price down to $965,000 and ultimately sold at $918,000. So I don't know if they had that kind of expectation, but that's what it took to get that property sold. The next property at 5707 Allen, that property was withdrawn off the market in March of this year. It was listed at $249,700. They put it back on the market at 6 months later at $260,700, which is kind of odd pricing there, instead of just a flat $260,000. But it sold. They ended up negotiating about $15,000 off at $255,000. So it took them 6 months to get that thing sold at that price point. The next property, and I won't go through all of these, but I do want to just flash them on the screen for you guys, just to take a quick glance. At 197 Anita, it was listed in April for $349,000, taken off the market, put back on the market a month and a half later at $325,000, and it sold for $312,500, and that was a closed sale. That's a pretty big dip there. Not quite sure what the level of motivation was for the seller and or agent, because again, these are all listed sales, but either the property didn't appraise, which chances are that does happen more often than people think, or the seller just got tired and decided they just wanted to drop the price. But initially, again, in April, they listed it for basically $350,000 and ended up selling it for $312,000 6 weeks later. Then we've got the one at 914 Ashton Park. This one expired at $260,000. It came back on the market the next year. Was that 7 months or so? Came back onto the market at $265,000. It closed at $265,000. So something changed either with the agency, the marketing, or they just caught a buyer at the right time, because they've sold at full price, which is excellent. Then we've got 5407 Beaver Drive. This is currently for sale as of this date. They were on the market before at $165,000. So this shows me previously, this was last year, so this shows me that this was a flip property. Okay, so this one here, 5407 here, was listed for $165,000, sold for $99,000, which is an excellent deal. Then they turned around and put it back on the market. So they bought it in this time last year on 12/28. They put it back on the market approximately 11 months later, and they have it on the market for $275,000. So I just wanted to point out just a handful of these so that you guys can kind of see what some expectations you should have when you're thinking about selling your house, that the list price that you get for your house is not always the price that you end up getting, because sometimes no matter how much research your real estate agent and yourself do on Zillow and on Redfin, on Realtor.com, and the tax records, you know, the offers that you might get from iBuyers, no matter what might happen, what your expectation is not always reality for the majority of people who are selling. Oftentimes I do have the conversations with homeowners homeowners that say, you know, well, I'm the lucky one, you know, I'm different, my house is special, it's unlike anything else, I've taken care of it, you know, there isn't anything wrong with my house, the buyers are going to love my house, I'm not in a hurry to sell, all the things that I hear regularly as an agent. And sometimes it is a crapshoot. Your job as a real estate agent is to introduce as many people to the house as possible and sell them on the virtues and the features and benefits of living there. And they're looking at your house, your listing, compared to everything else that's for sale, not even necessarily the house next door or the house in the next subdivision over, but they're looking in the whole entire market and comparing the whole entire market to your home. So, and sometimes price is an incentive to a buyer, sometimes it's convenience of time that's an incentive to a buyer. So it's kind of hard to always, although real estate is a practice and there's quite a bit of this business that's very duplicatable and done on a regular basis, and a lot of people think the same way. You know, it's not always 100% that case. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor and you have the flu and they give you some medication. It might work for you, but may not work for everybody else. Typically, humans all react to the same thing, but we're all individual people, and the same thing with your house. We'll have all individual houses, motivations, tastes, affluence, abilities to purchase, motivations, things like that. So I just wanted to point out basically what these, you know, sales have done for, and this is a pretty current representation of our current here. This is another page here. It just has a few more that I'll point out here quickly. You have the ones that are here on Castle Bar. This home is currently on the market as of this date. It was on the market now for $320,000. It was on the market for $335,500. So 3 months later, they adjusted the price. It is still currently, I checked, and it still is currently available. This one here, this one expired. This one was a sale that fell off the market unsold, and then it was relisted and sold. So they had it on the market initially for $409,000, and then they dropped the price to $400,000, and it sold for $395,000. That is actually pretty common with what I see, especially when a home has been on the market this long. It's about 4.5 months or so. That is kind of long. I'm not quite sure how long they might have went before they decided to drop that price from $409,000 to $400,000. A better price would actually have been $410,000, because if you were pricing at $410,000, you're going to attract buyers who are starting their search from $410,000 and up, and those who may be starting their search from $400,000 to $410,000. That's my philosophy and how I operate, how I work, how I sell real estate, and it always tends to work that way. People shopping around numbers. No one's out looking for a house, you know, at this weird price here at $512,500. Nobody puts that into a system as a search criteria. So this price right here would serve the seller and or agent best if it was either listed at $515,000 or $510,000, not the $512,000, $500,000, because no one's going to be able to search that in most of the search websites. So the next one here. Let's go to Collins Lake. So Collins Lake right here, you have this one. This one here is active, $512,500. It was on the market about 4 months before, listed at $429,000. I remember, and if we go back a couple of slides, I said the average sales price, I believe, and this one was about $515,000. So they're a little bit under that. So hopefully they'll be able to trigger a sale pretty quickly, because they are a little long on time there. If this is the lot that I think it is, it may be one that backs up to Fontaine Road, and you can also hear the train. So that could be that one being a little bit disadvantaged for its lot position. This one here, another one in Collins Lake. I've been in this house here. This also backs up to Fontaine Road. And this one here is listed for $584,900. They did have it for sale for $589,900. This one has no backyard, and it is kind of close to the street, the main road that's behind it. So it could be why this one's having some challenges here. And then let's go down to a few more here. We've got one that was, and I'm familiar with this property. I've been in this one, 4720 Gambrel. Now this one was listed at $340,000 and it sold at $340,000, which is actually no, it was listed at 340, fell off the market, came back on the market at 340, sold for 327. And I know this property owner who sold this property is a loan officer, so he kind of already knows how this works. But that is a little significant price difference. However, you got to do what you got to do. I know for a fact that that was a flipped property. So the loans that investors have to use, hard money loans or renovation loans, have extremely high interest rates. So carrying those loans are not cheap. So that could have been the motivating factor to sell it at 327. And this is not even including any closing costs or any other concessions that the sellers may have made. This is just a deduction on price for these particular properties. And then lastly, we're going to look at, actually, no, that's it. That's all we're going to look at. But you guys can see them here on the screen. And so these two slides are just to share with you expectations you should have, because I constantly have conversations with people that the list price is the list price. It's the price that you would like to get. When you get someone to come and negotiate with you, they're going to base their numbers on the statistics and also the condition of the property and the location, and then make their best offer. They're going to shoot their shot, and they'll see if you'll take it or won't take it. And these sellers, the ones that sell and are able to move on to go on to other property, usually are the winners. I believe that you can never undersell a house. I believe that the market is going to determine the price that you get for your home every single time. So our next slide. Notable listed sales in Mableton, Cooper Lake Road. I had a sale in 2016 for $875,000. It was for a 24.48 acre parcel outside of a subdivision, had a lake, a cell phone tower for income, and on it sat a 3,400 square foot home. There was also a home in Bear Lair Bluff Court in Vinus Estates in 2014, sold for $739,000, which was the largest parcel inside of a subdivision. And that particular home sat on 5.54 acres and had a 5,500 square foot floor plan. And then Highview Road sold in 2019 for $545,000. I know that property intimately well. I have sold it twice in the last 4 years. And this is the largest ranch home with a 2-acre lake on 9.4532, I believe, acres, and it sold for $545,000. The best ranch home. It was around 7,800 square feet under the roof, 3-car garage. It had 2 kitchens, an elevator, pool, lake. I mean, it was a beautiful ranch home, and those people who bought that house got a deal on it. So that home was also very significant, and it's only one of 3 homes in the last decade that have that much land and those types of attributes that have sold in all of Cobb County. So it's a very special sale. Now, selling to iBuyers. An iBuyer is an internet buyer. These are conglomerates that come and buy properties in different areas for cash. They cash you out as a seller. They give you a quick sale. But what I'm finding is that the sellers in our area are hovering around 12% of the cost, the sales price of the house to the conglomerate to buy their house and take it off their hands. Now, there's some sellers who are just falling in love with that, and they go and sell their house to them and they move on, and I think it's a beautiful thing for those who have a need for that. But I do think 12% is kind of a lot. You know, you can negotiate terms with real estate agents. Real estate agent fees hover anywhere from, say, 5% all the way up to, I believe for some agents charge 7%. It just depends on what they're doing for the homeowner. If you're charging 7%, usually you're doing the staging and making repairs and hooking them up with attorneys and fixing tax deeds and fixing liens and things like that. You're charging for the amount of services that you're doing, instead of just doing the marketing and negotiation for the house and showing it and doing open houses and taking pictures and doing tours and things like that. But 12% is a lot. And in fact, I'm seeing 12.2 to be specific, of what people are selling. So if you are selling a $100,000 house, that's $12,500 or so, and actually a little bit more than that in fees. And, you know, not everybody has that to give. So what you're usually going to run into, like I said, with a real estate agent is anywhere from around 5% up to 7%. So there is a cost savings, and then also having a professional that represents you in the sale of your home is also a benefit. But hey, it's not for everybody. So I suggest, you know, weighing all your options before you sign a contract with anyone, with an agent or with a conglomerate like Zillow or Open Door or Knock or OfferPad, any of those. My firm that I affiliate with also does iBuying to a degree in our area. So if you've got any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you, to give you some options. Our 30126 sales stats for iBuyers. So in 2018, iBuyers sold, let's see here, $4,281,645 in sales volume. In 2019, they sold $15,664,205 in volume. The totals altogether that iBuyers, and again, this is going to be Zillow, Knock, to a degree Redfin, but Redfin doesn't do a lot in our area at all. Just all OfferPad is one. Ribbon is starting to come into the Atlanta market, and they do the we'll buy your house and you rent back from us. Knock does something similar to that, but the fees aren't always as cheap as people think they are, because they often will think that renting back will be cheaper than their mortgage payment, but usually it's the opposite. So that's another video for another day. But total volume 19,945,850. 75 homes flipped by iBuyers here, and an average sold price of $266,000. Remember, the average sales price for listed homes by agents is $275. The iBuyers are selling for $266, which is very interesting. And see. And this talks a little bit more about what people are paying. This talks about, you know, your equity is your wealth when you go to sell properties. So you want to weigh all of your options when you are coming to the market. And then Mableton Forward Thinking. I'm going to have this slide presentation available on my website at therealestatemaven.net. If you really want to get into the meat of some of the things that I've wrote in my thoughts about Mableton's future, I'll have that on there. Again, the Mableton, therealestatemaven.net. And so that is pretty much all of the information I have for you guys. A little bit of, here's a slide about my information. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that I've covered in the online presentation today about Mableton. Let me know if you've got questions or would like resources. Handymen, attorneys, plumbers, electricians, home stagers, someone to do junk hauling, painting, roofing, anything. I'm here as a resource here in the Mableton area, and I have tons of vendors that I rely on in my own business that I'd be more than happy to give you to help you with getting more out of your home. So let me know if I can help in any way. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, or if there's anything I said that you disagree with, leave a comment below. I would love to do a little exchange with you and maybe be enlightened by anything that you might be aware of, and vice versa. So I'm Jackye Mumphrey, the Real Estate Maven. Thanks again so much for watching. I know it's been about 45 minutes or so, and for those who've stuck around, let me know what you think about the presentation, and I'm going to do a special drawing for an I Love Mableton t-shirt. So leave your comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Go ahead, please like and subscribe to this channel, and so that you can learn more about Mableton and about our real estate here in our area. Thanks again for watching, and I'm Jackye Mumphrey, the Real Estate Maven. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.